This stuff over. It's all me. Hey, turn the lights back on. It's all me.
Hey gang, Todd and Sunny here. And for our next look at a comedy team in a haunted house movie, we are going with the Bowery Boys. I wanted to go as Gabriel or Leo Gorcey, but Sunny won the coin toss, so I've got the ball cap to be Hunts Hall. Anyways, this a lot of background to understand the Bowery Boys. They started out in a play on Broadway called Dead End, and it was a social commentary film or play which went into how poverty breeds crime in a cycle. The kids that are growing up poor will, because they don't have any other outlets, will become criminals in order to actually survive. And when the play went to Hollywood, the 6 actors who played the teenage ruffians in the play, which were the ones who were shown that they would eventually become just like the main characters who were gangsters. That was Billy Hallop, Hunts Hall, Bobby Jordan, Leo Gorcey, Gabriel Dell, and Bernard Punsley. And the film was such a big success, they got labeled the Dead End Kids. Now, they made a series of films. Water. They made a series of films from 37 to 39. Helltown. They made me a criminal on a chain gang, and of course probably their most well-known film, Angels with Dirty Faces. Now there was in those films a bit of a internal struggle between Billy Hallop's leader and Leo Gorcey's character, who usually wanted to be the leader. So there was that dynamic. Now, when the popularity of their films started to go down, because they were all serious films about crime and poverty and things like that, the public kind of lost flavor with that, and so there was a bit of a split between the groups. Leo Gorcey, who also wanted to be the leader of the gang, went to Monogram along with Bobby Jordan, and they developed the East Side Kids. The other 4 went to Universal, where they were dubbed the Dead End Kids and the Little Tough Guys, which then just became the Little Tough Guys. Their series ran from about 40 to 42. When that ended, Hallop, who hadn't wanted to continue playing juveniles, went off on his own and had a decent career as a character actor. Bernard Punsley, when this was ended, acted again. He didn't want to act. This was middle of the Depression. He was making money. He went away, went to med school, and became a doctor. More power to him. Now, again, these films were mostly serious films. Although they did do a few serials, Junior G-Men, Junior G-Men of the Year. Interestingly enough, periodically, Bobby Jordan would show up in one of their films. And also Hans Hall and Gabriel Dell would periodically turn up in the East Side Kid films. Those usually Hans Hall would be a member of the gang, and Gabriel Dell might be a member of the gang, or he might be an antagonist. In one, he played a German agent. They were hitting in the war years. Which brings us to the East Side Kids, which ran from 1940 to 1945. And the core group was Leo Gorcey and Bobby Jordan, although he would leave to go into the military midway through the series, and then would return. He also had Gorcey's brother David, and former R Gang alumnus Sunshine Sammy Morrison, real name Eugene, and of course periodically Hans Hall, and periodically Gabriel Dell, as I explained earlier. They also had a lot of people that came in and out as actors came and went. They had a huge line of people that popped in and out as the same character or different characters. You had Hal E. Chester, Frankie Burke, Eugene Francis, David Haynes, Bobby Stone, Stanley Clements, who will become important later, William Benedict, and David Duran. Now, in 1946, Monogram was restructuring, and they were going to have bigger budgets. They had acquired the rights to Charlie Chan. Leo Gorcey, taking the reins of the group, created the Bowery Boys, in which its core group was, again, Leo Gorcey, Hans Hall, Bobby Jordan, who would eventually leave again, and Billy Benedict, David Gorcey, of course, and the Gorcey's patriarch, Leo Gorcey, Bernard Gorcey, who played Leo, the owner of the sweet shop the boys would always hang out with. And once again, they would have a rotating band of other actors who would pop in and out as the same character or different characters. Once again, you had Benny Bartlett and Buddy Gorman, who would play Butch, back and forth throughout the series. Then in 1956, Bernard Gorcey died, and William Benedict had also left at this time. And Leo Gorcey made one last film with the Bowery Boys before calling it quits and retiring. He just felt he couldn't go on without his father. David did stay for the entire run, which was about 7 films over a year and a half. They brought in Stanley Clements to replace Leo Gorcey, and Hans Hall, who had been second in the credits. It was usually listed as Leo Gorcey and the Bowery Boys, and then next was Hans Hall. Hans Hall got promoted to star billing, lead billing, so it was Hans Hall and the Bowery Boys, and then Stanley Clements was after that. They also had some new members played by, Jimmy Murphy and Eddie Leroy. And that series lasted in total from 1946 to 1958. Gorcey would occasionally pop up in small parts. Hans Hall continued acting as a character actor. Not sure about the rest. I didn't really look that much. But again, Billy Benedict, he very prolific actor, and he would continue acting in TV and stuff. But that brings us to our film, Masterminds, which now when they created the Bowery Boys, the actors were all in their 30s at this point, so having them pretend to still be teenagers in serious dramas, which was what the East Side Kids were. Well, they were serious dramas, there were horror comedies, they would bounce back and forth between social commentary, adventure films or action films and comedies, depending. And but here, because of their age, they decided to go full on farce. these guys were obviously not teenagers, so the whole series just became a comedic farce, and they would hit just about every style of film they could come up with. They did westerns, Bowery Boys in the 40s and 50s going to the old west. They had Bowery to Baghdad, where they tangled with a genie and ended up in Saudi Arabia. A lot of their films centered around Hans Hall's character, who would inevitably start something. Like he would get shocked by electricity and be able to predict winning numbers at roulette, or he would be fooling around in a lab and inadvertently build a new fuel that could cause a car to outrace anyone, so they start entering races. Or Gabriel Dell did return to the group, but he didn't want to be a member of the gang anymore. So, to compromise, Gorcey had him returning from overseas with a French bride. And so his main character usually would get a job. Each film he'd always have a different job. He had trouble keeping jobs. And that would sometimes tie in with the plot, such as when he gets a job as a private detective, and this coincides with their investigating a bunch of smugglers in Smuggler's Cove. Or he's got a job writing and selling music, and then Hans Hall's character has a tonsillectomy and ends up being able to sing like Sinatra. So they open up a nightclub. It's just kind of crazy things. And of course, the old Dark House movies. They did several of those. This one is called Masterminds. And in it, Hans Hall, who plays Satch, has been reading a book about Nostradamus and stuffing himself with candy, which has given him a toothache. And when the tooth gets to really hurting, he has a strange reaction.
33 seconds. Gabe Marino's gonna walk through that door.
How's the matter, you fatty? Gabriel's got a job this morning, one of the biggest firms in town. Bidding, baiting, botting, cursing, and foghorn.
No, he hasn't. He lost it 24 minutes ago.
And then Gabe walks in. He just lost his job 24 minutes ago. So they asked Satch to do a couple more predictions. He predicts the shop next door is on fire. They scoff at that, and then a fire truck shows up. So, but before he can do anything else, the toothache wears off and he reverts back to normal. Well, they now have a money-making scheme, and Gabe, who has had a morning's worth of training in publicity, is going to handle the publicity for their new fortune-telling act.
Yes! Hurrah! 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 Step right up there, folks, and see the greatest little show in the whole Midway.
At this point, we also learned that none of these guys know how to do math.
How was it take? $3.20. $3.20. That rate, it'll take us about 3,000 years to make our first million. Chief, why don't we charge a quarter? Well, it would only take about 500 years. Hey, that's fine. That's great. Thanks, Whitey.
And we also get an example of the great Satchmo's psychic ability.
You're married.
Yes.
I see an addition to your family.
Yeah?
Your mother-in-law is going to pay you a long, long visit.
After a few more corny jokes like predictions, my favorite being, on your son's 21st birthday, he will inherit $1 million. On your son's 22nd birthday, he will be broke. Anyway, Gabe has succeeded in getting front page news for Satchmo. And they are sure the money's just going to come rolling in now. Then we cut to a mad scientist, Dr. Druzek, who has received a creature from South America and has been experimenting on it, trying to turn him human.
Well, Atlas, how does it feel to be almost human? How does it feel to act like a man? You're telling me how happy you are. Soon you'll be able to tell me in words.
Yes, that is Alan Napier, who would go on to be Alfred in the Batman TV show. His assistant, Jane Addams, is, we'll get to her later, also has a Batman connection. She played Vicky Vale in the Columbia serial Batman and Robin. And Atlas, that is Glenn Strange, who played the Frankenstein monster in 3 films and played in a lot of westerns, usually as henchman, but is best known as Sam the bartender on Gunsmoke. Anyway, in order to make Atlas more human and able to talk, he needs the right kind of brain. And who should be on the front page of the paper? Ali bin Satchmo. So he and an assistant go to check out the act. Impressed with what they see, they decide to volunteer him.
Kidnap!
Returning with more candy to keep Satch's toothache going, they find he's gone. Nowhere to go. Which leads Slip to make a very distressing announcement to the crowd.
Schmo will not be able to appear at this ceremony to amaze and mystify you due to a strain on his mental cavities. It's all right. If you'll just return back to the box office, we will not only be glad to refund your money, but we'll also be highly mortified.
And thus we are finally getting into some of Leo Gorcey's famous malapropisms, where he would use the wrong word that sounds like the word he was wanting to say, but has a completely different meaning. He is said to have kept a thesaurus with him, and he would go through his script to look at his dialogue, and if he felt any of it needed to be punched up, he would use the thesaurus to come up with funny malapropisms to put in. Well, convinced that Satch has gone off to get his toothache fixed, why, he'll moiderize him. They split up and go to search all the dentist shops in the area, even the places they've never gone to, like out of the Bowery. Meanwhile, Satch meets his experiment buddy.
Say hello to Ali Ben Sakmo.
College boy.
There. Isn't it better to be friendly? After all, you two are going to have a great deal in common.
Atlas, I like you. You're nice looking. Oh, stop that. What's the matter when you ruin my shirt?
Now, the experiment isn't like a brain transfer. It's more of a, through electrical impulses, having the personalities kind of mingle in a way.
Oh, gee, I'm glad to see you again. You're bashful. Ooh. Eek! Help! Help! I just saw a monster. I'm getting out of here.
Now, obviously, Hall was supplying the voice via dubbing, but you gotta admit, Glenn Strange does his mannerisms so well. And I love the little thing where he stops to grab his hat before he leaves. Anyway, Dr. Druzik's not too concerned. He knows that instinct will bring Atlas back. Meanwhile, Atlas goes to Louis' sweet shop, where he scares the crap out of Louis and then the rest of the gang.
Your little boy Satch is back, Louis. Double malt me.
Double malt you. I'll triple malt you.
How's the Busey Jones? Your bread and butter. Let me in.
I'll let you in. I'll fracture you. I'll bread and butter you.
Anyway, finally, everybody talks, and although they don't believe he's Satch, they do believe he knows where Satch is. And so he takes them to the old Forsyth mansion. Now, about this time, Satch has bent out the bars of his cage and escaped. But he hasn't gone too far before he reverts back to being himself, Satch. At which point he finds a phone, calls the sweet shop, gets a hold of Gabe, who had just come back from his search, and tells him he's at the Forsyth mansion, and then gets recaptured. Meanwhile, Atlas has taken the guys to the mansion, shows them the tunnel they used to get in and out, and then his treatment wears off.
Hey, the door's over there. What's the matter? Something bothering you, Buttercup? Wait a minute, don't get rough. I get pretty rough too, you know. Back now,
Hey, go, boys. You can scale it.
So there's a bit of a chase, and then Atlas is recaptured by the orderlies, and a second treatment's done. Gabe shows up, and he finds the secret passage and goes down and has an inadvertent run-in with his own friends.
Boy, buddy. Hit him hard and hit him fast. One down, three to go.
Well, Gabe is revived by Nancy, the doctor's nurse assistant, Jane Addams, and she takes him to her room where she explains she's not a willing participant. She has been his assistant professionally, and a patient died under his care, and he managed to make it look like she did it, and so if she doesn't do what he says here, he'll turn her over to the cops. Meanwhile, Louis goes to the local constable, who tells him the police, or the Forsyth mansion, is deserted, it's haunted, nobody goes there, he's not up for any pranks. Why exactly did Louis get himself involved? Rather simple explanation.
Those hoodlums, if only they didn't owe me so much money.
Yeah, it's a running gag in the series. Their bill for the tab kept escalating as Louis kept giving them credit. Heaven knows why. Sometimes they'd pay it down, but they never paid it off, and it would kind of fluctuate. But I think at one point it was up to $35 or something for all the milkshakes they had. Anyways, Louis goes to the Forsyth mansion, and he finds a tunnel, and he goes in. Gabe, meanwhile, has been creeping along now. Nancy got called back to the lab, and Gabe goes to explore and inadvertently turns the tables on the gang for what they did to him earlier. And then has his own run-in with Satch.
You're catching a cold. You want to watch yourself. It's developing into pneumonia. Please. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? I just paid $28 for this suit. Tell me what it is. What's here?
Well, the gang gets captured. Satch gets re-caged. Gabe finds the gang, tries to rescue him, but he gets caught and thrown in with them. It's here that the doctor explains that after the third treatment, the change will be permanent. He will then throw Satch in with them, and Satch will take care of those loose ends. And then go to an asylum for being an obvious maniac. At which point, Louis shows up to handle the problem during the third treatment.
It is the 100th night.
Use your gun, you fool. Here.
Mercy, oh, honey.
But unfortunately, Satch gets free and attacks the knight who is unmasked as Louis. And then we get a fight between Atlas and Satch that has the inevitable outcome we expect.
Picking on a little fellow like that. Would you pick on somebody your size? Hey, Whitey, Chief, Sweep, help! Get off! I don't know which one to root for. Come on now.
This is getting very hereditary.
No, it's no time for thinking back. Will you stop? I'm gonna punch you. Wait till I get up out of here. You're playing too rough. Hey, Chief, Whitey, help! Help! What am I doing here?
But it's all not over yet, as Toothache pulls out another gun, only for the constable to show up, and Toothach's British stiff upper lip calm explanation doesn't wash with the local constabulary.
These people broke into my house.
Always thought this place was haunted. If you ain't ghosts, you owe taxes.
Yeah, and you better pay.
Oh! Just like Capone! Done in by his cheapness. Anyway, the constable takes them all to the station to get it all worked out. Then we end up back at the sideshow carnival, where unfortunately Satch can't make any predictions.
The show's ready to start. What are you trying to do, drive us into bankruptcy? How can I get a toothache when I ain't got a tooth?
Gone.
You ain't got a tooth?
Our claim to fame and fortune vanished.
What happened to your tooth, you melon head?
I swallowed it.
Hey,
Apparently that struggle with Atlas knocked it loose, and down it went. So another of their fabulous schemes is ended, and the movie goes to the credits with the usual Bowery Boy finish.
Satch! You can't do this to me,
I fooled you. Boy, can I act.
Yeah, you fooled me. Just for that, I'm gonna give you a little reward.
Sugar?
lumps!
And thus, we come to a hysterical end to the usual Bowery Boy antics. If there's anything I'm disappointed with this film is that they didn't have any of their usual routines. Not like a comedic routine like you get from a lot of other comedians. No, in the Bowery Boys world, a routine was things they used to get out of tough situations or when they were in a fight. You know, of course, they would call out Routine 37, and then they would all go into something that had been practiced. And it was a fun bit they always added to a lot of the films, but not always. But as is, it's a pretty good example of their kind of humor. They're sort of a you love 'em or you hate 'em kind of a comedy team. Kind of like the Stooges. Not everybody loves the Stooges. Don't understand why. They're brilliant. But, unlike, say, like Martin and Lewis or Abbott and Costello, Lauren Hardy, who had more of a universal appeal. Well, Abbott and Costello and Lauren Hardy, anyways. I know there are some people that aren't that enthused about Martin and Lewis, but that's neither here nor there. But it's amazing the kind of supporting players they got to play bad guys in these films. I mean, you have Alan Napier here. They've also had Douglas Drumble, Martin Koslick, Craig Stevens. Not unknowns. I mean, okay, Craig Stevens did this before he became Peter Gunn, but still, pretty good talent. And he also played against Abbott and Costello. But anyway, great fun movie. I love Glenn Strange. He so perfectly mimicked Huntz Hall's mannerisms. The kind of way he would walk. His kind of his hand gestures, the posture, the gait. He and Hall must have worked together on that because it was just perfect. Ironically, some people thought he actually imitated Hall's voice. This is probably, it's not my favorite of their Old Dark House spoofs they did, because they did like 4 or 5. Probably my favorite is Spookbusters, in which they were exterminators who got hired by a housing agent to fumigate a house that turned out to be haunted, but it wasn't haunted. It was a mad scientist who had a gorilla, and as usual, he wanted to put Satch's brain in the gorilla's body, to which, of course, Slip blurted out, "That wouldn't be fair to the gorilla." But I love that one mostly for the final fight, in which everybody gets doused with ether during the struggle, and so the fight is entirely in slow motion. It's just not only the hits, but the reactions. It makes me wonder if Don Adams had seen this film, because that was a very funny bit in an episode of Get Smart 2. Anyway, they also had Bowery Boys Meet the Monsters, in which they kind of got involved with an Addams Family style family, with like a vampirist looking woman and 2 mad scientists that were building a robot, and there was like a witch, and they had a few others that were kind of fun when they weren't fighting gangsters or getting involved in mysteries or some of the other fantasies. All in all, a really fun juvenile comedy series. It used to play, I remember in the 70s, it used to play on Channel 43 before the Soup's On, which was the Three Stooges show, and then Mad Theater. I think before that, either before that or after that, they did Jungle Theater in place of that, where it could have been called Johnny Weissmuller Theater because it was just his Tarzan movies and his Jungle Jim movies back and forth interspersed. But yeah, the Bowery Boys, very acquired taste. Of course, they had great chemistry with each other. They've been doing it for like decades by this point. And you could tell they had a lot of fun just goofing around. And these were a little more tighter than the East Side Kid films, because there's a lot of ad-libbing and a lot of jokes would not land. If I ever get around to doing Spooks Run Wild, in which they meet Bela Lugosi, you'll see what I mean, where some of the ad-libbing is just awful. But if you do wonder why most of the time is spent with like the main three, Gabe, Satch, and Slip, that was the way most of the Bowery Boys films worked. Sometimes there would be interplay between Satch and Whitey, or Slip and Whitey, but David Gorsey, his Pee-wee, or was that in the East Side Kids? Yeah, that's right, he was Chuck in the Bowery Boys. Not a lot. There were some times he would get a bit of a bigger role, but he himself was not all that interested in acting. He mainly did it because his brother wanted him in the series, and he never thought of himself as that much of an actor. So he was content just to be a background player. Well, there's not really that much else to say. It's a fun movie. Alan Napier makes a great villain. A lot different than the usual type, because he's so poised and sophisticated. A lot of times they would come up against like richer type villains to play off of their lower class personas. So that was always a good the haves and have-nots in their films. When they weren't doing crazy things like Satch selling his soul to the devil so he could get tips on the horse races. And then getting involved with mobsters, of course. But yeah, if you're a fan, this is definitely one of their best. Certainly in their top 15 or so. If you're not, well, comedy is subjective. Please hit like, share, and subscribe, and stay after for my credits for my favorite scene. And one other thing, I've often wondered if Sherwood Schwartz was also a fan of the Bowery Boys, considering Alan Hale was always hitting Bob Denver's head with his hat, just like here in the Bowery Boy films. Maybe not. Well, till next time.
Trying to do? Disintegrate us?
Chief, all I did was push the switch.
All I did is push. This time I deserved it.